Hello and welcome to another episode of our YouTube channel at Ideal Wealth Growers. My name is Axel Meyerhofer and I'm going to be your host for today's episode. As we're reaching the end of the year 2020, that was definitely a tumultuous year and a year with a lot of things that most people have probably never experienced. You know, when you ask somebody about this time last year, what's a shutdown or what's a lockdown, or how does a pandemic affect the community? How will our economy develop in the following year? Or any of those kind of things. And then breaking it down more and more and more into smaller increments. A lot of the things, either we wouldn't even know what the question is, we wouldn't have been able to imagine what potential things could happen. And I'm pretty sure most people would say, I had no idea or never imagined that what we actually experienced would be happening or could be happening. Now, I have had the great privilege to be invited to a lot of podcasts throughout this year, especially in the second half of 2020. And as we come to the end of the year, I was thinking a little bit about, okay, what are some thoughts to share as we're getting ready for the new year, but also what were some of the impactful things that were coming out of these podcasts that some of the hosts asked me to provide answers and viewpoints and so forth about. And two things for this particular video that I would like to address, or at least give my thoughts about, have to do with the purpose of our activities and the word legacy. And so I start with legacy, and then we can talk a little bit about the purpose of our activities. And so I looked it up because in several podcasts recently, somebody said, well, you know, what do you work on? What do you want your legacy to be? And I was kind of stumbling around a little bit, not really completely prepared of what should I say? What am I really looking for? Is there really something very specific that would make that answer? So I looked up what you can find, like on Google or in the dictionary. And what I found is under legacy, and I'm looking here at my monitor, it says a legacy is a part of a person that lives on long after that person has passed. A legacy also leaves behind the story of a person so they are not forgotten. And legacies are important pathways of the future to follow or to be guided by in order to make better decisions in life. So from a definition perspective or from a descriptive perspective, I can totally get behind that. So if you ask me, both in the context of Ideal Wealth Grower, but in general, with that in mind, what to leave behind, what Ideal Wealth Grower stands for and what we offer and why I am on podcasts and stuff like that has to do with helping people become aware that there is a pathway and a journey for you and your family to create wealth by investing in residential real estate, which ultimately is not so much this creating wealth or the investment itself, but the outcome being that there is passive income that comes into your pocket on a regular basis, into your accounts. And if you use this income and savings by paying yourself 10% first for everything that comes in, for any kind of activity, any income, any kind of compensation that you receive. So you're paying yourself 10% first, plus what comes in from your already existing properties and investments. You build basically little blocks of money. I always say they should be $15,000 to $20,000 that then allow you to buy another property and another property and another property. And over time, if you go and say, okay, well, I want to have, let's say, $5,000 a month to come in, because that will cover all my expenses for anything that I pay for my car, for my house, for my food, for my insurance, for any of those kind of things that you need to sustain your life and enjoy your life. Let's say that number would be $5,000 and you have $250 after everything is paid for each one of those properties that you bought to come to you every month. So then the calculation is relatively easy. You need 20 of those properties to get to $5,000. Or if you find a way to get properties that pay you $400 or $500 a month, then you only need 10. So it's not so much that there's a fixed number to say you need to buy this many properties and that means that's the number comes out, because it's variable. But to your legacy, it's not just that journey and learning, hopefully through Ideal Wealth Grower, how to get there, but it's also how does that support the legacy. So if we go to that first statement about what is left after a person has gone, is that portfolio of assets. And that portfolio of assets has an amazing ability that not a lot of people are immediately aware of unless you're being asked about things like legacy. And that is that these $5,000 or whatever, like in 10, 20, 30, 40 years, whenever that point comes when you no longer around and you basically turning the portfolio over to your heirs, whatever that number is in those dollars in those years, but it's going to be more than those 5,000 that you started with. That means that the next generation and the next generation and the next generation is not just reminded that you bought these properties and they inherited them, but you're also securing their future, their ability to cover their expenses for generations to come. So it's the physical reminder of you have been here and you created this portfolio, and these different properties can be visited and touched, and the tenants can be spoken to and reminded of the person that actually created that legacy and created that portfolio. But the income generation also goes on. And there's a lot of little details about, what happens in inheritance taxes and what can you do and reset of valuations and stuff. But when you really go to something that has been created that lasts beyond a lifetime, that for me is a really important realization. And I would like to ask you at this time of the year, when we get into the holidays and the end of the year is coming pretty close, to ask yourself, what have you done in the past? And what are you planning to do in the future to keep building your own legacy? Now, the other part I mentioned at the very beginning of this video is the purpose of our activities. And one component, now that we spoke about legacy, for me and for the people that we're working with, is in the purpose of our activities to help people to get into the right place and have the right assets and have the right amount of money and find the right properties to be able to build their portfolio and ultimately in that context build their legacy. But there's also a component about how are you doing it, not just why. The why could be, I want my passive income, I don't want to exchange time for money anymore, I want to reach my economic independence point. The $5,000 will give me the freedom to do whatever I want to do regardless whether it makes money or not, because my expenses are covered. But the how we're doing it is part, in my view, and an important part of the legacy as well. So it's important, for example, for me, and when people say, well, how would you actually boil this down to just a statement? I've always said for decades and decades, and keep saying it today, for me it is helping others help themselves become successful. Now, how does that actually look like? Has, for example, to do with really addressing everybody as a full person, as a respected person, as somebody of value. There are some people out there who say, you need to earn my trust, you need to earn my attention, you need to earn. For me, that has never worked. For me, I apply the assumption that everybody tries their best, is their best, shows up in the best way possible on any given day. Does that mean there is no room for improvement? No, absolutely not. There's always room for improvement for me, for everybody who works on our team, and for anybody that we encounter. But it's not to say you have to first show me if you're worth my attention. You have to first show me if I actually want to spend time. You have to first show me that you either want to pay me something or in some way recognize that I'm actually providing a service. And so when you connect this how to interact, how to actually provide services, how to actually help others help themselves become successful, it's that approach and that attitude that is the first stepping stone. And then from there, it's a matter of when you respect people, when you treat everybody equal, when you actually make an effort to help people to really get the information that they need and to really care for them and engage with them and be willing to be patient with them, they recognize that, and the ultimate outcome is that you develop better relationships. And because better relationships are being created, they are longer lasting. And especially when we're talking about residential real estate, one of the important issues is that in residential real estate investing, you need to have some patience. in residential real estate, you need to have some patience. If you want to develop a portfolio, it doesn't happen overnight. And what I mean by that is, if you say right now I don't have very much and this year has been pretty horrible and have not been able to put any money aside or anything like that, well, you can start right now or at the first of the new year and say, okay, how can I get, for example, to take 10% and anything else that comes in and put it in what I call an accumulation account, so I have $1,000 a month. And Axel says $15,000 to $20,000 until I can actually invest in my first property. Well, that's 15 to 20 months. Or if you can do more than 1,000, maybe 10 to 15 months. But it's a clearly identifiable time period, and you need to have the patience. And I know a year is a long time. But then, and here we are in December, just before Christmas. Think about, can you still remember last Christmas? Can you still kind of review all the stuff that rushed by in 2020? I have the impression years go by faster and faster and faster. If you have that impression too, and I'm saying 12 to 15 to 20 months until you're ready to buy your first property, it's not really that long. It's patience and discipline to actually do it. And then when you connect with some organization like ours and our team to say, let us help you, then at least when you're getting to these points that you can actually make investments and the time accelerates from one to the next, and overall we're always saying it's 10 to 15 years and you're done, right? I have seen in a number of the podcasts, to come back to that theme, that I've been on, when I had the pleasure to be interviewed by somebody in their 20s and 30s who are catering to an audience of younger people who are thinking, okay, how am I going to shape my life with the money that comes in? I'm finding that there's oftentimes like, wow, is that really possible? When I say, well, your window is typically about 15 years. In some cases it can be 10 years, but in 15 years, if you're really disciplined, if you're really diligent, that's your work life. It doesn't have to be 30, 40, 45 years as it used to be. We are in an environment where we have the opportunity to make these investments and build the legacy and build basically this income portfolio that will serve us for the rest of our lives and the generations to come. So I would like to encourage you at this time of the year to ask yourself, what have you done and what are you planning to do to keep building on your legacy? What have you done and what can you do to increase your accumulation account contributions for the coming year? And how quickly can you start actually making your investments? And even though we are very biased to say it should be residential real estate investing, that doesn't mean it's the only way to go. There are plenty of other things that you can also do that I would like you to contemplate. But the more important thing is to ask yourself, how do I create something that lasts beyond my time around here and helps those that you engage, based both by your activities and how you show up and interact with people and build relationships, as well as tangible assets that last into the future. So ask yourself, what's my legacy? What can I do for it? And how can I go about it so it really serves the population? That's what we're trying here. That's my goal every year to do. And I'm trying to get better and better as I'm doing it. And hopefully people will ultimately be able to say, we feel and we can see and we can reflect that there is care. Not everything is successful. But what we want to get across is that we care for every relationship and every person that we are engaging. So with that being said, I hope you like the content here on the channel, you like this video. Click the like button, share the video with your community. If you're not already a subscriber, I would love for you to be a subscriber. And the more you can actually share the links about our videos with your community, you help us more and more to get people to be aware that we are here for you and that we really want to serve you. So with that being said, I wish you happy holidays and a great transition into the next year. And until next time, be well, be safe, and see you soon.